Hello and welcome. I am politically motivated and I hope that you are too. The BBC's Naga Munchetty has been allowed to push her twisted, biased agenda unopposed via the BBC for far too long. Presumably, it's because she's of Asian descent. Whilst watching her horrific interview today with Conservative MP Chris Philp, I finally felt that I had to take a stand against her and all of those spouting their twisted agendas. Be sure to leave your thoughts on what I'm about to say in the comments section below. You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to argue your case, or I'm just going to delete your comment. If you like grown-up debate and a platform which encourages well-thought-out arguments, then why not subscribe and hit the notification bell? Rishi Sunak came under fire today from many sides, but most notably from the father of Brianna Ghey, who was recently murdered by two teenage friends in one of the most barbaric and savage attacks in British history. He demanded an apology from Rishi Sunak for the following statement, which the PM made at PM's question time today.
But it's a bit rich, Mr. Speaker, to hear about promises from someone who's broken every single promise he was elected on. I mean, I think I counted almost 30 in the last year. Pensions, planning, peerages, public sector pay, tuition fees, childcare, second referendums, defining a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn. The list goes on, but the theme is the same, Mr. Speaker. It's empty words, broken promises, and absolutely no plan.
So I guess this boils down to what you believe to the question, what is a woman? Personally, I believe that transgender men are not and never will be women. And with that simple, immutable fact as my baseline, I see no evidence of any kind which could suggest that Rishi Sunak should issue an apology to Ghey's father or anyone else for that matter. And as a side note, with the surname of Ghey, I'm sure Brianna would have had a very difficult school life, no matter what he or she chose his gender or sexuality to be. But Naga obviously disagrees with me, and she wanted to make that abundantly clear as she relentlessly bashed PM Chris Philp over the head with her chosen narrative, as she spoke over him repeatedly.
I'd like to talk about the criticism he made of Sir Keir Starmer referring to U-turns, and as one of those criticisms he was talking about defining a woman, claiming, and it was done as a political jibe, I think it's fair to say, as part of the theatre of Prime Minister's questions. Do you think that jibe was appropriate when the mother of Brianna Ghey, Esther, was in the House? She wasn't in the gallery, but she was in the chamber, in the House. Do you think it was appropriate at that time for the Prime Minister to have that on his list of jibes to hit back at Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I think you've made the point that the Prime Minister wasn't talking about trans issues. He certainly wasn't talking about Brianna in that passage of PMQs. He was talking about Keir Starmer's record of U-turns on a whole range of different issues. He listed about,
I agree, but he did not need to use defining a woman at that moment in time, did he?
Let me finish. He was listing a whole number of different U-turns. We've seen another U-turn today where it's Labour are ditching their £28 billion commitment.
Yeah, we're covering that. Let's talk about Rishi Sunak.
They've got no plan at all, no plan whatsoever. That was the point the Prime Minister was making. Keir Starmer makes repeated U-turns. He says whatever is convenient on a given day of the week. He's got no plan on any substantive policy issue.
I want to focus on what Rishi Sunak said. Was it appropriate, in your opinion, that he used that line of the 30, he said, nearly 30 he's counted, that he used that particular line when Brianna Ghey's mother was in the chamber?
Not in the chamber, but in the wider premises.
And then she came to the gallery soon after those comments. Okay.
And I think later in that exchange, later in Prime Minister's questions, a Labour member of Parliament asked a question specifically about Brianna and her family, and the Prime Minister paid a very warm tribute to Brianna
after he'd
and
been
her
asked
family,
to apologise,
and her family. And the campaigning they'd done, making clear his support for them, and that was the right thing to do.
Was it respectful, his initial comment?
Well, I think he was drawing attention to a series of U-turns, flip-flops, the fact that Labour have no plan whatsoever.
Chris Philp, you've explained that, and I've accepted that he was talking about U-turns. I'm asking you if you think it was respectful.
I think he was talking about Labour's and Keir Starmer's
And you've
flip-flops
said
and
that.
U-turns.
Do you think it was respectful to talk about Sir Keir Starmer's views on trans people at that time? Do you think it was respectful?
Well, he was talking about Labour's policy flip-flops, and that is a reasonable thing to do. The Prime Minister made no reference at all to any individual trans people. It was Keir Starmer who introduced that. The Prime Minister was making a point about Labour's very numerous flip-flops, another one of which we're seeing today, illustrating they've got no plan whatsoever.
Okay, the father of Brianna Ghey, Peter Spooner, has said that Rishi Sunak's remarks were degrading and absolutely dehumanising. He said, as the Prime Minister for our country, to come out with degrading comments like he did, regardless of them being in relation to discussions in Parliament, they are absolutely dehumanising. He went on to say identities of people should not be used in that manner. And I personally feel shocked by his comments and feel he should apologise for his remarks. Is Peter Spooner, the father of Brianna Ghey, going to get an apology from Rishi Sunak?
Well, I was very, very sad to read or to hear about those comments from Brianna's father yesterday when he made those. As I say, I think anyone who is interested in this issue should actually listen to the clip, listen to the initial exchange yesterday.
So are you saying Peter
PMQs.
Spooner has misunderstood what Rishi Sunak has said?
Look, I've got every respect for, obviously, the views and feelings of a bereaved father.
Do you think he
obviously.
deserves an apology?
Look, I think if you just people should listen to the clip, form their own view.
He has listened to the clip. I cannot imagine that the father of a child who was murdered a year ago this Sunday has not listened to that clip. And I think it's quite disingenuous for you to suggest he hasn't. He's asked for an apology. Do you think he'll get one?
Whoa. I did not for a second suggest that. I'm saying that people who want to form a view...
But my question to you was about whether Peter Spooner would get an apology, not about people listening to the clip.
OK. Look, I've already said repeatedly that the Prime Minister made no reference to any individual in his remarks yesterday. It was Keir Starmer who introduced the name of an individual. When the Prime Minister was asked about Brianna later on in PMQs, he paid a very, very warm tribute to Brianna and her family. What he was doing in the initial exchange, the contentious exchange, was talk about Labour's policy positions in about 10 different areas. He listed 10 different areas. He touched on this one as one of about 10. He didn't make any reference to any individuals at all. It was Keir Starmer who then introduced that at the end. And I think anyone who's in any doubt about this should just listen to the clip and form their own view. I've listened. I actually wasn't there at the time. I was in the Home Office. I arrived a bit later on during PMQs, so I listened to the clip. And it seemed clear to me, listening to it, that this was about Labour's policy positions, and the Prime Minister didn't make any reference to any individuals at all.
Chris Philp, Policing Minister, thank you very much for your time with us on Break.
If anyone should be apologising, I would say that it's Sir Keir Starmer, who, quick as a flash, saw the opportunity for a quick and easy moral victory over the PM when he said the following.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber, shame, parading as a man of integrity when he's got absolutely no responsibility. Absolute. Of all.
Later, Rishi Sunak defended his position by saying,
I was completely shocked by Brianna's case. To have your child taken from you in such awful circumstances is almost impossible to come to terms with. And for Brianna's mum to talk with such empathy and compassion about that, I thought was inspiring, and it showed the very best of humanity. I have nothing but the most heartfelt sympathy for her entire family and friends. But to use that tragedy to detract from the very separate and clear point I was making about Keir Starmer's proven track record of multiple U-turns on major policies because he doesn't have a plan, I think is both sad and wrong, and it demonstrates the worst of politics.
The father has demanded an apology from you, so will you honour that?
I expected at this point for him to say, no, I will not apologise, because I have not said or done anything in order to justify an apology. But unfortunately, he actually said this.
If you look at what I said, I was very clear talking about Keir Starmer's proven track record of U-turns on major policies because he doesn't have a plan, a point only proven by today's reports that the Labour Party and Keir Starmer are apparently planning to reverse on their signature economic green spending policy. That just demonstrates the point I was making. He's someone who has just consistently changed his mind on a whole range of major things, and I think that is an absolutely legitimate thing to point out, and it demonstrates that he doesn't have a plan for the country.
So what are your thoughts on this then? Let me know in the comments section below. I'm politically motivated, and I hope that you are too.